It's the all-new Max Movie Show.
Thrills, chills, romance.
Next on Cinemax.
We're looking for somebody who's not afraid to do a little hard work.
Well, Hank, if you hire me, I'll help you look.
It's the Max Movie Show. I'm Jimmy Fink, and if you're a movie fan or buff, we've got you covered. In the next half hour, Charles Grodin tells us why he's on the rocks, and Dudley Moore tells us about Arthur on the Rocks. We'll go on location for all the filming in Hollywood North. And in Hollywood Gold, we pay tribute to screen legend Audrey Hepburn, recently cast in a new role. Why is Kevin Kline sticking French fries up Michael Palin's nose? John Cleese explains in a most unusual interview about his new film, A Fish Called Wanda. And we'll have a special Max Movie News report from Dara Wells on what's in production, who's hot, and wherefore art thou, Lawrence of Arabia? But first, let's take a look at what's at the box office. Guess who's back this summer? Eddie Murphy, starring with his off-screen buddy Arsenio Hall and newcomer Shari Headley in Coming to America. Murphy plays the prince of a mythical African kingdom who sets out on a journey in search of something special.
This trip is an excellent idea. 40 days of fornication.
Simi, I have something else in mind. Tell no one of this. I intend to find my bride.
What is wrong with the one you have now? When you saw her, tell me you did not want to rip her clothes off right then and there.
I want a woman that's going to arouse my intellect as well as my loins.
Where will you find such a woman?
In America.
At a recent New York press conference, Eddie and his co-stars welcomed reporters to set the record straight on his first romantic comedy.
It's been said that when you do a love scene, you have, at least at that moment, to be in love with the leading lady. Were you?
Were Shari and I in love? No, I don't think we're... I think there was a very strong mutual respect for each other as thespians.
Shari, describe for us the moments leading up to that first kiss.
I would say if I were to rate the kiss, because that would be easiest to do, I would probably rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 and 11.
Almost an entire black cast. How do you think this movie's going to do at the box office?
First of all, it's my film, so people that like me are going to come out to see the movie, and I don't think there's going to be a point where people sit in the audience and go, wait a second, ain't no white folks in this film. Let's get the hell out of here.
If you were Joel Siegel or the two of you were Siskel and Ebert, how would you review this film?
You know, Gene, I feel that this movie is the movie that Eddie Murphy needed.
Well, I think just different. Why would Eddie do a picture like this now? We're used to seeing him. Why take Eddie Murphy? You've taken Eddie Murphy, you put him in a $40 million set when all you really need is Eddie just there rambling in his street clothes. I didn't like this film. I thought it was a big waste of time. And the thing about Africa, everyone knows that Africa is a continent in crisis. To see them running around happy, I just didn't buy any of this movie.
They have already killed one hostage.
This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
Die Hard stars Bruce Willis as a New York City cop trapped in a Los Angeles office tower seized by terrorists on Christmas Eve. The action pic co-stars Alexander Goodenough and Bonnie Bedelia as Willis's wife in distress.
He's an ordinary guy who was thrown into extraordinary circumstances. He's not some super cop, some indestructible, unfeeling, unemotional guy.
Thanks for the advice. Cut. John, you okay? Yeah. Right.
This is a really intelligent story. It's not just action. It's a really well thought out script. It works on a lot of different levels. It works on an action level. It works on a romantic level. We have some real good bad guys.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
I really trained hard for this film and got in good shape. It was a physically exhausting film. I did most of my own stunts in this because I think that always lends a lot of production value to the, the picture, and it was a lot of fun.
Lions, elephants, dancing girls, clowns. Looks like the greatest show on earth, starring the greatest schmo on earth, Pee-wee Herman in Big Top Pee-wee.
This film's got everything. Thrills, chills, romance. That's right. It's a sexy love story between me and not one, but count 'em, 2 beautiful women. It's also a buddy picture. Hey, there's one of my co-stars, Vance the Talking Pig. Say something, Vance. This is a very challenging role for me. I walk, I talk, I crawl on my belly like a reptile.
Mr. Herman, ready for you on the set.
Beg me.
Please, Mr. Herman.
Pretty please.
Pretty please.
Excuse me, won't you?
Big Top, Pee-wee, take 1.
It was somewhere between Toledo and Cleveland.
Oh, no, come on. Cigarettes are killers.
Who the hell were those guys?
Those are hired killers back there.
I can't take this.
Hired to kill who?
Midnight Run teams up Charles Grodin with Robert De Niro in this action comedy.
5 hours left.
De Niro plays a bounty hunter assigned to find ex-mob accountant Grodin and ferry him across the country, eluding G-men, hoods, and a rival bounty hunter.
This is my room, and that's your room. Good night.
Playing an accountant sounds conventional, but when performed by Charles Grodin, one of the best character actors of our time, you can always be assured of something very unconventional.
This is a man who steals $15 million from the mafia and gives it to charity, and, it's a man with such an imagination and such a scope that however smart I would be in the part, however imaginative I'd be in the part, it still wouldn't be enough, because he is doing something, he's a Robin Hood, he's a heroic figure that would do that. Bobby De Niro thinks he's a criminal, that I'm a criminal, but that's not how I see it. There's no parameters for it. You could just really do anything, and that's why it's such a good part, really. And I think that's why everybody wanted to play it. I had certain information about the director that I really threatened to use if they hadn't given it to me. I think they would have preferred 3 or 4 guys better than me, but they decided he couldn't really handle what I was going to reveal. I thought I'd get really hurt making this movie. I really did. I mean, you read this script and, he falls off a cliff, he gets thrown off a train, he goes down the rapids, and we had to go to New Zealand to shoot this sequence in the rapids because there was no body of water, rapids in America that you could go into without your body temperature being lowered to the point where you would die. We tried it. And an hour after we came out of the water, we dried off, and an hour later, we were still shaking. You couldn't stop shaking. So we had to go all the way to New Zealand, which is, I think the only place farther than New Zealand is Tonga. And Bobby De Niro is the kind of guy that when we get to New Zealand, he says, look, you can't come all the way to New Zealand and not go see Tonga.
French fries up the nose, goldfish down the gullet, a squashed Yorkie? This could only be a movie written by John Cleese of Monty Python fame. Recently, the stars of the film were in New York to talk about the experience of making A Fish Called Wanda.
Now, John, I understand A Fish Called Wanda really came from you.
That's right, yes. Well, it was my mother's idea originally, but I stole it from her, and she's dead now, so there's absolutely no copyright problem.
What is A Fish Called Wanda about?
It's about this brilliant American girl who has 4 men in love with her, but she gets the $20 million because they're all so dumb.
Well, it's about this rather dashing and, dare I say, sexy English lawyer who finishes up with the money and Jamie Lee Curtis.
It's about this neo-Buddhist ex-CIA operative and the intense intellectual obsession with himself as a 20th century psychosexual phenomenon, basically.
It's about this good-looking animal rights activist with a slight stammer who's trying to
It's about $7.3 million, with MGM picking up the worldwide video rights on a cross-collateralization for the merchandising tie-in.
You've been described as the leading Shakespearean actor of your generation. What attracted you to A Fish Called Wanda?
Well, my agent told me that this prominent English group had offered me this part in a project, and I assumed, of course, that it was the Royal Shakespeare Company or the National Theatre. And then it turns out to be this Monty Pie Plate or Mickey Pylon or Marnie Teflon or whatever, and it was a mistake.
Why did you approach Jamie Lee Curtis for the role of Wanda?
Simply because I really wanted to meet her before I died.
I actually had a lot of other offers at the time. Lady Macbeth, Glass Menagerie, Three Sisters, St. Joan. But Wanda was the only part that I got to keep my clothes on.
Why did you go for Michael Palin for the role of Ken?
Well, Michael Palin is a very good friend of mine, but he doesn't work that much, because as you know, he has this very bad stutter. So I created the role of Ken Pyle, especially for him.
I really love the part. I just wish his name hadn't been Ken.
Did you have any difficulties writing for an American audience?
No, no, I especially studied American slang because I wanted to write a really way-in, on-the-wall comedy with jokes that would, you know, come right out of the field, so that the movable picture would bust the blocks and not finish up in an art house where it could get arrested. I mean, we need that like we need a head in the hole.
Well, actually, I had to rewrite my entire part. It's typical. I had to take out all of these I says and jolly goods and gosh, aren't these tea cakes frightfully spiffy? And put in some really good, strong four-letter words so that the movie could get an R rating so the kids would want to see it.
How was it working on Wanda together?
Oh, wonderful, just wonderful. We had so much fun.
About as much fun as you can have in England without chemical assistance.
Michael Palin kept us all in fits with his anecdotes.
I told them about the time I tried to
Pity he never finished one.
We really enjoyed working on the scenes together. It was like one big family.
Yeah. The Manson family.
The atmosphere was unbelievable. It was almost like a religious experience.
Like the kind you have just before you die.
Will you stop interrupting? I didn't say anything. I wasn't talking to you.
Go fry a kipper, you English twit.
This is just what it was like.
That's not true.
Love scenes with him.
Lousy bitch, you'll never work in England again.
That's the nicest thing you ever said to me.
Anyway, I think Fish Called Wanda is going to be a big hit. Sorry, big hit. Because it's got lots of sex and violence and fish. Lots and lots of fish. More fish than in any recent movie, including Jaws. That's by number, obviously, not by weight. So, don't miss A Fish Called Wanda. Definitely 2 thumbs sideways. Thank you.
We're all very excited about it.
So anyway, heek.
If A Fish Called Wanda is as much fun as its cast, you better start lining up at the box office. We'll be back with more summer films, but first, Max Movie News.
This is Dara Wells with the latest report for Max Movie News. Currently in production is Tap, the first movie to merge tap dancing with contemporary pop music styles. It stars 2 of America's hottest entertainers, Gregory Hines and Sammy Davis Jr., who were recently filming in New York City's Times Square. Hines plays an ex-convict torn by his haunting past and his desire to dance, but in real life, Hines has absolutely no question about the art form.
I think of myself as a tap dancer. I mean, I've been doing it my whole life, and it's the easiest way for me to express myself as an artist. I mean, I enjoy the other things that I get an opportunity to do, but I'm a tap dancer.
Moviegoers will get a new look at an old favorite. The film classic Lawrence of Arabia will be re-released in the fall, this time with 22 minutes of rediscovered footage. Lawrence of Arabia took 4 years to film, won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1962, and launched Peter O'Toole into stardom. For the comedy Second Sight, currently in production, a prop Boeing 727 had to be built to look as though its wings had been sheared off. Heads turned as this giant prop was hauled along 3,000 miles of interstate highway from Pasadena to where the film was shooting in Boston. The plane was built by a Pasadena company who builds floats for the Rose Bowl parade. No problem. They're used to building things big. And Tom Hanks, whose latest movie, Big, is living up to its title at the box office, will appear on screen later this year with his new film, Punchline. This bittersweet comedy also stars Sally Field as a housewife trying to break into the stand-up comedy business. Hanks portrays Stephen Gold, a med student by day and a driven stand-up comic by night. To prepare for his role, Hanks tried out material in comedy clubs in New York and L.A. for months.
You really put your ass on a line in a very unique way when you get up to be a stand-up comedian, simply because you're up there all alone. It's also extremely lonely. There's nobody to talk to.
What do Who's Harry Crumb, starring John Candy, The Fly 2, starring Eric Stoltz, and Cousins with Ted Danson and Isabella Rossellini all have in common? Well, they're all currently in production in Hollywood North. For the past few years, so many TV and movie productions have been filming in Canada, especially Vancouver, that Canada's been coined Hollywood North, and for some very good reasons, too.
This place is the only place in Canada that has a reasonably temperate climate the entire year. Everywhere else freezes over like an ice cube during the winter, and some of them can get very hot during the summer. Now, we have a rain component here that can be very distressing at times, but generally speaking, it's reasonably temperate. Also, the city is very interestingly situated. You can get into the wilderness of the mountains, you've got the ocean, you've got lakes, there's all kinds of different architecture. Someone who studies urban culture might think that it's a jumbled mess, but on the other hand, it's very useful for film locations.
Well, obviously, the dollar, the Canadian dollar is low right now. It's rising slowly, but it's monetary reasons, I'm sure. This is a wonderful city to shoot in, and I highly recommend filming here.
John Candy also served as executive producer on the film.
I have fired myself 3 times on this picture so far, and reluctantly brought myself back on. It's been a battle.
Also filming in Vancouver is the sequel to The Fly 2, starring Eric Stoltz and directed by Chris Walas. Walas talks about why he brought his production north.
We don't have a lot of exteriors. I wanted the exteriors to look very nice and very different, not typically, you know, Hollywood where you go outside and it's the desert. You know, it's the desert and palm trees or whatever, and this had to have a little bit more of a generic look where we've got some coniferous forest and deciduous trees and nice houses, and just a different feel. We were originally going to go back to Toronto where the first film was shot, but that was the middle of winter, and I didn't want, you know, our character to sort of break free into the beautiful world and have it be a blizzard outside. The associate producer suggested Vancouver, which was great because they had a bigger stage and we could build this huge set, so I said yes.
It's lovely though, fresh, clean air, 5 movies shooting here. It's really like a Hollywood of the North.
I'm Dara Wells for Max Movie News.
That face, that wonderful face, it shines. It glows all over the place.
When you think of Hollywood gold, you think of Audrey Hepburn. When you think of Audrey Hepburn, you think of style, glamour, grace, and perhaps of a more innocent time.
I didn't mean to become an actress, no, and nor did I ever think I could be one. I started earning my living as a dancer. I really wanted to be a dancer and studied to be one, and then little by little found myself involved.
Her first role was in Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck. It was director William Wyler who discovered Audrey Hepburn.
I was a dancer in London when he was looking for an unknown face to do his Roman Holiday, and I couldn't have been more unknown. And he tested me, had me tested along with lots of other girls, and thanks to him I won the part, and also thanks to Greg, because Greg quite clearly had co-partner approval, and he allowed me to do the pictures. So the 2 of them launched me on a career which has really brought me nothing but happiness. But you can go down the list. I have all good memories, which is hard. It's hard to believe, but if you know, if you think of the directors that I worked with, I mean, I did 3 pictures with William Wyler. No wonder I talk about him a lot. And I did 2 with Billy Wilder. And I worked with Fred Zinnemann and Stanley Donen and Blake Edwards, and I mean, you name it. Let's not even talk about Humphrey Bogart and Bill Holden and Cary Grant and Gary Cooper. Curiously enough, I withdrew from pictures when my eldest son started to go to school, and so I more or less stayed home since then, except for a few pictures. Now I'm going around the world for children.
Audrey Hepburn's latest role has taken her around the world, but it hasn't been for making movies. Recently, she traveled to Ethiopia, having been appointed Special Ambassador for UNICEF.
I'm discovering myself what it really means is being an emissary, is being someone who can go around the world telling, speaking of the problems. In my case, I'm speaking for children who can't speak for themselves. I knew I would see suffering, I knew I would see the results of the drought and so forth. I was not prepared for the extraordinary quality and beauty of the people. They are really very extraordinary.
A humanitarian, a legend, a star. Audrey Hepburn is true Hollywood gold.
I have a wonderful life. I have my garden, my roses, my tomatoes, all my dogs, the countryside, and that's where I most love to be. And not to forget all my friends.
While Audrey Hepburn loves to be at the countryside, the rest of us love to be at the movies. So let's go back to the box office for more summer releases. With 55 films under his belt, Gene Hackman now steps into the ring with a new action drama, Split Decisions. This new family drama goes inside the world of boxing to reveal the complex relationships in one boxing family, the Fighting McGuins.
There's an honest sense of relationship between the family. We certainly cover the big fight, but we also have a real conflict going on in the corner, so that from an audience point of view, yes, it is boxing and it is a sport, but it's also an honest relationship.
You've got to take this round, you understand me? Show him who's in charge. Come on, let's do that. Come on, get up. Show him you're a McGuinn.
I find that fascinating when I'm offered a role where I can find those flaws in characters that we as an audience can all see. We see what the father is doing. We see mistakes he's making. But we also recognize that those mistakes in ourselves. And that, to me, is the basis of drama.
You live in my house, you do it my way, or you get out. Come on! Eddie! Eddie!
It's 1926, Newport, Rhode Island, a time of robber barons, gluttony, flight from reality. The film is Mr. North, about an extraordinary young man played by Anthony Edwards, whose body conducts large jolts of static electricity, which is mistaken for magical healing powers. This film started out as a family affair with veteran actor-director John Huston playing the crusty tycoon, Mr. Bosworth. His daughter, Academy Award winner Angelica Huston, plays his granddaughter, Persis, and his son, Danny Huston, directs. When John Huston died, the role of Mr. Bosworth was taken over by Robert Mitchum.
He called me up, and he said, Bob, I'm going to Newport, Rhode Island tomorrow to start a picture, to work in the pictures, but my son Danny is directing, and he said, I'm not in the best of shape. And he said, if I should happen to fall by the wayside, would you step in for me? And I said, sure.
Obviously, I mean, my attachment for John is very long-standing. And the chance to be connected with him in any way would only please me.
The impressive cast, also featuring Harry Dean Stanton and Tammy Grimes, were all eager to do this picture as a tribute to John Huston. Well, it's summertime again, and that means it's Sequel City, that time when you go to a multiplex movie theater and decide whether or not to see Rambo 3 in Cinema 1 at 5:30, or Short Circuit 2 in Cinema 6 at 4, and then there's Poltergeist 3 at 7 in Cinema 5, or a toss-up between Crocodile Dundee 2 in Cinema 4 at 11, Caddyshack 2 in Cinema 4 at 9, or Friday the 13th Part 7 in Cinema 8 at 10. One movie everyone has been eagerly awaiting is the sequel to the hit comedy Arthur.
Hello, my beauty.
Called Arthur on the Rocks, with Dudley Moore recreating his role as the lovable Lush.
You must hate those things. Hey, look, Fairchild, I'm finally on the wagon. Pull! Hit the bullet, hit the bullet!
Arthur's just lost $750 million.
This was back when $750 million was considered a lot of money. Oh, yeah. Hi, honey.
I didn't make him different. He's really the same mildly outrageous, half of the time drunk fool who lives. He's not a fool, actually. He's quite wise in his way. He just likes to have a good time. He's a hedonist, I suppose. But he's a safe hedonist.
Isn't having money the most fabulous thing ever?
He goes to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and although I never think of him as an alcoholic, I just think of him as somebody who takes an occasional bevy.
Was Arthur well looking for somebody who was honest, not afraid to learn, and not afraid to do a little hard work.
Well, Hank, if you hire me, I'll help you look. I mean, I enjoy doing comedy, because within comedy, you can sneak in a lot of drama. You can sneak in subtle sort of things that are moving, I think, in a dramatic way, if you like. You don't have to be monochromatically comedic or monochromatically dramatic either, because I think both are boring.
What can make me feel this way? Myself.
As they say in the movies, cut. It's a wrap for the Max Movie Show. Next month, we'll slip you some celluloid on Siblings in the Saddle as Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen mount up for young guns. Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas will be in the driver's seat with their new film, Tucker, starring Jeff Bridges. And Pierce Brosnan talks about his plunge into the world of mystery and ritual murder in his new film, The Deceivers. Until then, I'm Jimmy Fink for the Max Movie Show.